There's a place on Earth where you are closer to astronauts in space than to any other human being on the planet. A place so remote that when you die there, your body would sink 2.5 miles before hitting the ocean floor, and no one would ever find you. Welcome to Point Nemo, the most isolated location on planet Earth. And what humanity does there will absolutely blow your mind. Stay until fact number 8, because that's when things get absolutely insane. Let's dive in, and remember, every day is a happy day. Okay, so imagine you're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Not just anywhere in the Pacific, but in the exact spot that is furthest from land in any direction. This place is called Point Nemo, named after Captain Nemo from Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And the name literally means no one in Latin, because that's exactly what's here, no one. The nearest land in any direction is 1,670 miles away. That's further than the distance from New York to Denver. The closest pieces of land are Ducie Island to the north, Motu Nui near Easter Island to the northeast, and Maher Island in Antarctica to the south. All of them exactly 1,670 miles away. And here's the crazy part. The International Space Station orbits at about 250 miles above Earth. So when the ISS passes over Point Nemo, the astronauts in space are literally closer to Point Nemo than any human on land. You are more connected to people floating in space than to anyone on Earth. Let that sink in. But here's where things get absolutely wild. Point Nemo isn't just the most remote spot on Earth. It's also the place where hundreds of spacecraft go to die. Space agencies from around the world, NASA, Russia's Roscosmos, the European Space Agency, Japan, they all use Point Nemo as a dumping ground for dead satellites and space stations. Since 1971, over 263 spacecraft have been deliberately crashed into this area. We're talking the Russian Mir space station, weighing 286,000 pounds, over 100 Russian resupply vehicles, 6 Japanese cargo ships, 140 Russian satellites, and SpaceX rockets and capsules. At the bottom of the ocean, 2.5 miles down, there's a graveyard of space technology. Pieces of the Mir space station, cargo ships that supplied the ISS, defunct satellites, rocket boosters. It's like an alien junkyard, except it's all our junk, and it's sitting in complete darkness in the deepest, most isolated part of the ocean. The pressure down there is so intense it would crush a human instantly. These spacecraft are entombed in eternal darkness, never to be seen again. Okay, so why Point Nemo? Why not just let satellites burn up in the atmosphere? Or dump them somewhere else? Here's the thing. When you deorbit something massive like a space station, it doesn't completely burn up. Chunks of it, big chunks, survive re-entry and hit the surface. When Russia brought down the Mir space station in 2001, over 1,500 pieces survived and crashed into Point Nemo. Some pieces weighed tons. Now imagine if that debris hit a populated area, a city, a town, a ship full of people. Point Nemo was chosen because it's the safest spot. There are no shipping lanes nearby, no islands, no flight paths, no fishing zones. Space agencies use it because they can calculate the exact trajectory needed to hit this spot. They fire rockets at just the right time, at just the right angle, and splash. Another spacecraft joins the graveyard. Clean, precise, and no casualties. So what's Point Nemo actually like? If you somehow ended up there, what would you experience? First of all, you'd see nothing, just water, in every direction, for 1,670 miles. The horizon would be empty. No ships, no planes, no land, no birds. Just you, the sky, and the ocean. Point Nemo sits in the South Pacific Gyre, a massive rotating ocean current. The water here is some of the clearest on Earth because the current keeps nutrients away. There's very little marine life here. No whales, no dolphins, barely any fish. The water is too nutrient poor. It's basically an oceanic desert. You'd be floating in crystal clear, dead water with 2.5 miles of darkness beneath you, knowing that if something goes wrong, no one is coming. Rescue is literally impossible. The nearest help is over 1,600 miles away. By the time anyone reached you, you'd be long gone. Point Nemo is located in the Southern Ocean, and conditions there are brutal. The water temperature averages between 41 and 50 degrees Fahrenheit. That's cold. Hypothermia in minutes cold. The Southern Ocean is known for having some of the worst storms on Earth. Waves can reach 50+ feet high. Winds scream at 50+ miles per hour regularly. Sailors call this latitude the Roaring Forties because of the insane westerly winds that rip across the ocean unobstructed. There's a reason no major shipping lanes go through here. It's too dangerous, too remote, and there's literally no reason to be there. But on rare calm days, it would be hauntingly beautiful. Just you, the endless blue, and the knowledge that you're standing at the edge of human reach. So the big question, has anyone actually been to Point Nemo? There's no confirmed record of anyone deliberately visiting the exact coordinates. It's just too remote and too pointless to reach. The closest humans regularly get is probably racing yachts competing in the Volvo Ocean Race or similar extreme sailing competitions. They pass within a few hundred miles sometimes, but even extreme sailors avoid this area if possible. There's no support, no rescue, no backup. A few scientific expeditions have gotten close for research purposes, studying ocean currents, taking water samples, measuring pollution levels. But visiting the exact point, the precise coordinates, it's basically never happened. Think about it. 12 humans have walked on the moon. Hundreds have been to the summit of Mount Everest. But the exact oceanic pole of inaccessibility? Probably zero. Now here's something that's going to hit you in the feels. The International Space Station, humanity's greatest collaborative achievement in space, our home in orbit for over 20 years, is going to end up at the bottom of Point Nemo. In 2031, NASA and its partners plan to deliberately deorbit the ISS. And when they do, they're aiming for Point Nemo. The ISS weighs 925,000 pounds and is the size of a football field. When it comes down, it's going to be the largest controlled deorbit in history. For 30+ years, the ISS has been humanity's outpost in space. Thousands of experiments, hundreds of astronauts from dozens of countries, decades of science. And it's all going to end in the most remote spot on Earth, joining the other 263 spacecraft in the darkness below. It's kind of poetic, really. The closest humanity has lived to Point Nemo is in space. And now our space home will rest there forever. Okay, now we're getting to the really weird part. Ready for this? Horror writer H.P. Lovecraft wrote about a fictional sunken city called R'lyeh, the underwater prison where the ancient cosmic entity Cthulhu sleeps, waiting to rise and destroy humanity. And guess where Lovecraft placed R'lyeh in his stories? 47 degrees 9 minutes south, 126 degrees 43 minutes west, which is only about 120 miles from Point Nemo. So the most remote point on Earth, where hundreds of spacecraft are dumped, where astronauts pass closer than any human, is right next to where Lovecraft imagined an ancient evil sleeping beneath the waves. Now, obviously, Cthulhu isn't real, but the internet has absolutely run with this coincidence. People joke that all these spacecraft crashing into the ocean are slowly waking up Cthulhu, that the spacecraft graveyard is built directly on top of an ancient evil, which would be very on-brand for humanity, honestly. Hey, where should we dump our space junk? How about directly on top of the Elder God? Perfect! Now let's talk about something important. Is dumping hundreds of spacecraft into the ocean actually okay? Here's the thing. Most spacecraft that deorbit into Point Nemo are designed to burn up almost completely in the atmosphere. The intense heat, we're talking 3,000+ degrees Fahrenheit, vaporizes most of the structure. What survives is mostly dense metals and some toxic materials like hydrazine fuel. Scientists don't fully understand the long-term impact. The deep ocean at Point Nemo is one of the least studied environments on Earth. We know very little about what lives down there, and we're dumping hundreds of tons of spacecraft debris on top of it. The alternative? Let satellites re-enter randomly, risking populated areas. Or leave them in orbit, contributing to space junk. Or try to retrieve them, which is insanely expensive. Point Nemo represents the least bad option we currently have. But as we launch more satellites, send more missions to space, this graveyard is only going to get bigger. So there you have it. Point Nemo, the most isolated spot on planet Earth. A place where you're closer to astronauts than humans, where 263 plus spacecraft rest in darkness, where the ISS will end up in 2031, where Lovecraft placed Cthulhu, where strange sounds echo from the deep, where rescue is literally impossible, and where almost no one has ever been. It's a place that represents both the best and worst of human innovation. We've conquered space, built incredible technology, achieved the impossible, and we dump it all in the middle of the ocean because we don't know what else to do with it. Point Nemo reminds us that even on our tiny planet, there are still places beyond our reach, still mysteries in the deep, still frontiers we've barely touched. And honestly, I think that's kind of beautiful. In a world where you can Google Earth any location, where satellites photograph everything, where nothing seems unknown anymore, there's still a spot where no one goes, where you're truly, completely, utterly alone. If this video absolutely blew your mind, smash that like button and subscribe, because we're diving into more remote, mysterious, and absolutely insane places on Earth. Drop a comment and tell me, would you ever want to visit Point Nemo? Or does the idea of being that isolated terrify you? And remember, whether you're on solid ground or floating in the most remote ocean on Earth, every day is a happy day.